Hi, everyone. Welcome to the home stretch. My name is Shelly. The story I'm going to tell you today starts in my local coffee shop and ends with an answer to a problem that's keeping thousands of New Yorkers from things as basic as having a job or being able to walk down the street without being arrested. That problem is how hard it is to get ID if you don't have one to start with. My local coffee shop is a special place. It's a nonprofit cafe called Reconnect that employs young people, like Edwin and Brad behind me, who are working to turn their lives around. Over the course of the last year, I've gotten to know many of the young men that work there as a patron and a volunteer. Here's my friend, Sir James. Yes, his name is Sir James. He's full of new ideas for the cafe and dreams of starting his own catering business one day. But today, he does not have his Social Security card. You see, he grew up, passed between relatives, and his card didn't make it through the journey. Without it, he's not even able to apply to most of the jobs and job training programs that could start the stable life he's looking for. He can't even rent an apartment. He can't even open a bank account. His not having a card certainly isn't for lack of trying. I watched Sir James try to puzzle through confusing government applications, like the one you see behind me, visit websites, stay on hold on government hotlines, and go on 4 different 5-hour trips to government offices before he finally got all the information and help that he needed. The current application process is filled with dead ends. And most people who are in vulnerable situations can't afford this much time, but they also can't afford to not have ID because they need to pursue the life that they want. Sir James has plenty of company. Over 20 million Americans also lack government-issued ID and experience similar ordeals when applying for a new one. Many of these 20 million belong to communities with low literacy and limited access to technology. This year, I asked myself the question, what if we reimagine the ID application process to include the needs of its most vulnerable users? What if there were more paths to success instead of so many dead ends? So, I started For the People, which transforms confusing government instructions into accessible ones, enhancing anybody's ability to navigate complicated government services. And I started with, you can probably guess, ID for the People. ID for the People shows applicants the quickest and easiest ways to get ID with instructions that are personalized to their situations. ID for the People was created in response to the needs of New Yorkers with limited resources. However, it improves the process for everybody. And I think we can all agree we would love to save an extra trip to the DMV and not sit in a waiting room like the ones that we just saw. First, ID for the People is accessible. That means that applicants in Sir James's position, or anybody, can get the information they need without a long wait. That's because guides are available in formats that people with fewer resources can most easily access, as printed pamphlets, an SMS hotline, and a mobile-friendly website. That's all really nice to have, but information only works when it's actually in people's hands. So I've also been working to get these guides into people's hands by working with community organizations that thousands of people without ID regularly visit for work, like Reconnect, meals, like Holy Apostles Soup Kitchen in Chelsea, Manhattan, that serves most of Manhattan's homeless community, or scheduled probation meetings, by working with the Department of Probation's office in the South Bronx. It's just as crucial that the instructions specific to an applicant's situation are complete and easy to find. To that end, ID for the People covers a broad range of situations. Print versions of the guide, like you see here, are color-coded to help applicants find the right one for them. And when you open them up, the instructions in the guide are ordered based on the top questions that ID applicants I interviewed have. So instructions that are easier to access, that don't leave anybody hanging, makes applicants feel prepared instead of discouraged to navigating government services. And when you're at the office, interacting with a tired and overworked civil servant, feeling prepared and positive is just as important as being prepared. I've been testing the prototypes you just saw with a total of 25 people at my pilot sites, Reconnect, the Soup Kitchen, and the South Bronx Probation Office. Here's a response that I consistently got when I put ID for the people in a real person's hands. This is Sean. He's another barista at Reconnect. He's trying to get his ID so that he can take the GED. He'll be the first to tell you, after a couple weeks of warming up to you, that he's a man of few words. And he was initially kind of hesitant to test my guides because he said, "No, I heard from my friends that you need 7 points to get the ID, that my mom needs to come with me. I just don't think it's going to happen." So I was surprised when I saw a change in his face as he was flipping through one of my pamphlets, and his demeanor changed from, "I don't think I could ever do this," to, "I can do this." And he interrupted me during the middle of our feedback session to ask if he could call his mom and tell her that he wanted to go with her to the Social Security card office the very next week to get this taken care of. So that's one success story. Now I want to show you how different parts of the ID for the People system work together beyond the pamphlets, with this following hypothetical situation starring some of my friends from Reconnect, who were so kind as to model for me. This is Kia. He's feeling overwhelmed. He just lost his wallet and lost all of his IDs. He's not sure how to start replacing them all from scratch. Fortunately, his friend Craig, another barista at Reconnect, stops by and asks him what's going on. When he hears Kia's story, he has just the thing: an ID for the People pamphlet stocked at Reconnect's bookshelf. Kia perks up when he sees that there are quick alternatives for getting a Social Security card without having ID. He reads that because his lost ID hasn't expired yet, he can get a replacement, and that could come as soon as 2 weeks. He borrows Craig's smartphone to jump onto a website, the For the People website, to learn more about what he needs to do. He answers a few quick questions about his situation. He's getting a state ID, and it's a replacement, and it hasn't yet expired. He's happy to learn that he can replace his license online. He's happy to learn that he can replace his state ID online without needing to show ID. All he needs to do is ask his mom if he can borrow her credit card to order it. He wants to get reminded about this later, so he texts the instructions to his own feature phone. He gets them a few minutes later, with additional information about free internet resources in case he needs a free internet cafe or to go to a library to place his online order. A week later, Kia has already ordered his state ID online. He gets a follow-up text from For the People and happily reports that the instructions he received worked great. To close, without the right information, navigating government services feels like being stuck in a maze without a map. ID for the People is that map. Imagine what would happen if we applied the For the People process to other complicated government services, like getting food stamps or a green card. Well, we don't have to imagine it. We can build it right now. Thank you.